Welcome, everyone. We'll give it just about 30 seconds for people to join, and then we'll get started. All right. People are coming in hot. Okay. Hi, everyone. Welcome. I'm Rebecca Taylor, Head of Marketing in Interflow. Thanks so much for joining today's webinar, co-hosted by two industry powerhouses. We have Anthony Conklin, sales professional and sales leader at the AJC Group and sales leadership development coach, and Nate Giovanelli, owner of Giovanelli LLC, CEO of Sunrays Capital, and biz dev consultant for Interflow. Just a few quick housekeeping notes and we'll get started. Today's webinar will be recorded and we will share the recording out afterwards. You're all muted by default, but please put your questions into the Q&A or into the chat, and we will have like 15 minutes of Q&A at the end, and we'll try to get to all of them. So with that, I'll hand it over to Nate to get us started.
Hey, thanks, Rebecca, and appreciate you joining us today, Anthony. I'm excited to chat with you. So for those that are joining or trying to do something a little bit different, we want to help our user base level up their sales game. So we're not just going to be talking about integrations like we generally do on our webinars. Instead, we're bringing in an industry expert who does this for a living, and he's going to give everyone some free insights and knowledge into how you can compress times to win more deals. So I think, Anthony, that I just really want to start with a pretty open-ended question, but what's on top of my mind, and that's you consult for a number of companies in the space and, sales, leadership development. And I'm curious, what are you seeing on the front lines? Like, what is the number one problem sales reps are having today? That's where I'd like to start.
Well, first of all, Nate, thank you for having me here. I'm honored and I'm grateful for the opportunity to speak to you and also the rest of the team at Interflow and all the people that are joining in today. It's usually there's one answer to that question, but it kind of has multiple levels. But the one thing, if I were to put hang my hat on one thing, it's being able to manage your time effectively and really have the confidence to do the things you're supposed to do, especially right now. I was in many coaching calls over the past couple of days, even a coaching call this morning. One of the senior leadership members said, hey, this is the fourth quarter and it typically slows down. And that's like nails on a chalkboard for me. And whether it's true or not, it's getting your head around having the right mindset to really take on the fourth quarter. You have to have it in the right place, and having that time management and being able to manage the tasks and the projects you have to work on and having the confidence to execute on those are going to be critical, not just for the fourth quarter, but throughout the entire year.
So then I guess the leading question would be, then what can reps do to move the needle?
So, we've gone through this massive downturn in the residential market with high interest rates. As you know, one of the leading financial lenders was acquired. Some people call it bankruptcy. Some would call it strategic acquisition. And there's a lot of turmoil. Everybody's running from the loans over to the leases. And to continue to move the needle, let me get to that point specifically. Moving the needle means doing something in your business that generates leads and generates revenue. Those are the two most important things you have to focus on: generating leads and generating revenue. So what you can do as a rep, and I'm going to talk from a rep and a leadership point of view. What you can do as a rep right now is find ways that are always working in good times and in bad. Tony Robbins talks about we're moving into winter. Well, we are technically in winter. I want you to go and find ways to generate more leads. How can you call more sales orgs? How can you empower them to make better decisions? How can you do more outreach, whether it be cold outreach, warm outreach, calling out to customers? You need to go back to the fundamentals. Moving the needle means doing the things that you typically don't like to do, right? I mean, I don't know who likes cold calling. I think maybe I know one or two people. I was on a call this morning, and this young lady that was one of my coaching clients said to me, Anthony, I love making phone calls. And I said, you're 1 in 1,000, 1 in a million, but you got to make those calls. You have, right? Nate, I'm sure you've come into contact with that as well. But making those calls. So moving the needle means doing the things you have to do, right? And doing them now.
Yeah.
Now from a leadership perspective, it's making those decisions you know you need to make. A lot of leaders right now are, do I fish or cut bait? Do I have to completely reorg my organization? Do I continue to hang on? Right? Hope is a strategy personally, but hope is not a strategy when it comes to business. You can't hope things are going to get better. You can't hope your sales team is going to make more calls. You can't hope your sales team is going to go out there and knock more doors or build strategic relationships. So leaders right now, and again, whether it be in New York and Florida, I have tons of clients in Florida, in Texas, in New York, in Connecticut. They all say the same thing. I need to figure out a way to do it. Well, stop figuring and start doing. Right now is the time for execution.
I love that. Yeah. When I first got into solar, it was actually still right before I was doing combined heat and power back when we started IGS. And my boss at the time and mentor to this day gave me an anecdote about, it was like one of the top sales reps at IBM or some large Fortune 500 company. And he, clocked in and out 9 to 5 every day, but he just blew everyone away. And he said, what he did, they asked him, like, what's your secret? And he said, I have 100 toothpicks in this cup. Every time I make a call, I move one to this cup. And when I'm done with all 100, I go home. And I adopted that because I was, calling hospitals and all kinds of institutions for combined heat and power. And it is a way to hold yourself accountable. And that's kind of, I'm telling this story because it's going to lead me into the next question is, and I think that's kind of what you're dancing around is, what can reps do to leverage personal and professional accountability to increase their sales? Because I think that's the crux of what you just mentioned.
Yeah, I mean, you led me right to the point. Accountability is something that is very mysterious in the solar industry. When I got into solar in 2007, I sold my first system as a 2.7 kilowatt SunPower system, 200-watt black panels. I sold at $12 a watt. New York was giving away great rebates. I made a boatload of money. Right? I think our first year we did $350,000. And when I left in 2012, we were like in the hundreds of millions, right? But things were great. But when the market took a turn in 2008, that's when accountability became important. Meaning, are you making enough phone calls? Are you doing enough follow-ups? Are you doing all the things you need to do? And very simple way of keeping yourself accountable is really prioritizing your day. And it's simple. And I've done this with clients that you and I both know, Nate, that we've actually worked on together, people that we know in the industry. And if I can, I want to share a very simple tool that you can use to make yourself or keep yourself accountable and also keep your teams accountable, right? For those of you that have read Gino Wickman's Traction, I use the KPI scorecard. A scorecard is a very simple way of documenting the activities you need to do, whether it be on a daily basis, weekly, monthly, or quarterly. Now, and I know Enerflow has some of those capabilities as well that we've actually, one of my clients, we've actually integrated the KPI scorecard into Enerflow and being able to track those tasks. So if I say to you, Nate, I'm gonna get 3 deals done this week, or I'm gonna onboard 3 clients this week, and I don't document it someplace, how do you know if I really did it? And how am I holding myself accountable? So the KPI scorecard gives us a place we could all go to, that it's shareable amongst all the team members, and we could determine were the activities actually executed on? Were the calls really made? Was the follow-up really done? Was this person not qualified? So I'm talking specifically residential, right? Was it a DNQ? Was it a cancellation? Was it a no-show? And being able to keep yourself accountable is going to give you clarity on what you need to do next, right? I mean, back in the day before GPS was around, we had these big giant maps. We decided where we wanted to go. So imagine right now, and I hear this from sales reps and leaders and VPs of sales every day is, I just need more sales. Well, are you keeping track and are you keeping yourself and your team accountable to get to 100, 200, 300 deals a month? And having that KPI scorecard is going to change everything. Now, if I can just flip this over, Nate, this is going to really, it's going to ring a bell for everyone on the call. And if it doesn't, I'm going to talk to you. I'm going to talk to you, the rep. I'm going to talk to you, the CEO. I'm going to talk to you, the VP of sales. You have a lot of things you do in the day. And most VPs of sales, statistics say that 40 to 50% of a VP of sales or a CEO is doing what? It's putting out fires. Oh my gosh, I don't know. I'm chasing a deal that's never going to close. I'm putting stuff into the pipeline that's just, we call it garbage, right? Garbage in. And it's not garbage in, garbage out. It's garbage in, garbage stays in. And you have this big fat pipeline of stuff. So instead of fighting fires, start prioritizing your accountability tasks. Very, very simple tool that I use is called the Eisenhower Matrix. So for those of you are history buffs, right? Eisenhower was the 34th president from 1951 to 1963 it was. I believe it was, no, before 61, because then JFK was president. And he was a general, and he had to make life-changing decisions. Guys, listen, write this down. This president was making life-changing decisions, and he came up with a model to determine what I needed to do first, second, third, and fourth, right? I think, Nate, you call it the 2x2. I call it Eisenhower, 2x2. So the Eisenhower matrix it's a very, very simple process. You're going to be able to put a square together, and I'm going to read them to you. And if you'd like to get a copy, I'll give you a copy of our Eisenhower matrix. We've made it specifically just for the solar industry. But let me walk you real quickly through the 4 sections of the Eisenhower matrix. I want you all to take a pen or pull up your iPad or your phone and write down right now, what is the most urgent and the most important thing you need to do right now? It could be go get that contract signed. It could be make that follow-up call. It could be send that text. It could be compel that business owner to call you back. When things are important and they're urgent, what do? You do it right now. Nothing else matters. You do it right now. So that's one bucket you're going to put your tasks in. Your second is going to be, it's important, but it's not really urgent. Okay, let me give you an example of something that's important, but it's not urgent. Well, I need to make sure that the commission plan that we just put together is rolled out to the sales team. Okay, well, I don't have to do that right now. I could do that on the Monday 10 a.m. sales call. So we can set it up that way. So what you do is you decide and you schedule it. That means, okay, by Friday at 8 a.m., I need to make sure that my commission plan is ready to roll out. So you're going to put your not urgent, important tasks into that bucket or into that box. There's box number 3, which is, listen, it's urgent, but it's not really important. Well, there's the idea of giving it to someone else to do. Like, I am not a big spreadsheet guy, right? Nate, I'm sure you like numbers. I'm not a big numbers person. I have people to do that. So when and Hunter, who's my head of operations, he's a big numbers guy. I said, Hunter, I need you to take care of these spreadsheet numbers for me. Even though I know it's not important, but it's urgent and I got to get it done, I will delegate that task. For those of you that are not, you don't have the staff, or if everyone is busy, Upwork.com, right? Find someone you can delegate that task to. I'm a very big believer in using VAs. And then there's the final box, which is, it's not important and it's not urgent. Now, I want you to all think of this one thing. How many things do you do every single day that really don't move the needle, right, Nate? There's tons of things we do. Now, Enerflow solves a lot of the problems that we need because it's a great tool for us. But there are other things that we do that we just do because out of what? It's because of habit. And what I want you to do is I want you to delete it. I want you to eliminate it. So if you can put your to-dos, your tasks, your everyday tasks, and I'm talking to the senior leaders right now. Senior leaders, you're focused on growth and innovation, finding that next relationship, finding that next investment partner, finding that next territory you want to go in. You can still use Eisenhower Matrix and determine what's important, what's not important, what's urgent, and what's not urgent.
Yeah, and I just threw it up there. Example, there's 1,000 of them online, so you can Google it. But this is something we've used in every single business that I've either been a part of or run. And it's super important, especially, I mean, not only for personal accountability, but when it gets really fun, if, you know, you're at that CEO level and you have multiple departments and you're trying to prioritize things, especially in the tech world, because everything's like a button, right? So like at us at Enerflow, it's like, how do you prioritize all these different integrations you're trying to do? And the 2x2 or Eisenhower Matrix is a phenomenal way to do that. And I highly encourage everyone to. And
accountability is a two-way street, Nate, right? Because let's say you and I are working on a project together. I'm accountable to you as much as you're accountable to me. So for the CEOs or the heads of sales or even the project managers and tech folks that are on the call today, remember, accountability is a two-way street, right? Just like relationships and communication is a two-way street. So you want to keep yourself accountable as long as keeping your team accountable. A systemic, I'll say this twice, a systemic problem right now in the residential solar space is a huge lack of accountability. CEOs think they know what their VP of sales is doing. VP of sales think they know what their team is doing. Their team thinks everyone else is doing everything else, and there's no accountability. Accountability is a two-way street. Using the Eisenhower Matrix and a KPI scorecard puts a stake in the ground for everyone to go to say, hey, we know what's going on, and we can make those adjustments to move the needle in the right direction.
Yeah, I know. I agree. There's three things there that you said I want to dive into, and we'll see where the conversation goes.
Sure.
But one that it piqued my interest that I wrote down. You were talking about garbage in and it just sits there, and this is something again even before I was in renewables and I was managing a team of engineers. We always struggled with is really like what metrics to follow, right? Because you could take this two different ways. Is the garbage from the activity or is it just what you're tracking? In other words, you're tracking leads. So people just throw leads in there that they know aren't going to close. So I'm kind of curious if you could just dive into that and just maybe go the next layer deep. Like what KPIs do you think that companies and or reps should be tracking so they don't get that noise of the garbage that sits there?
Yeah, I'm a firm believer in control what you can control. And tracking a KPI just for the sake of tracking it doesn't do anything, because that part of the analogy of tracking garbage in, garbage stays in, right? I mean, there's always the 5 or 6 that I go to. And if you guys want a copy of my scorecard that I use for clients, I'm happy to share that with you. We could do a free coaching session if you want. I can share it with you. I mean, one of them is if you're in the door knocking business, right? If you guys are a setter closer model, it's how many doors did you knock, right? How many did you knock? How many engagements did you have? How many conversations did you have? And then I would create a percentage, and I would put a stake in the ground saying, we have to make this percentage every single week. So how many door knocks, how many engagements, right? How many electric bills did you get? Now this may bode well for the commercial side as well, because what's the first sign of commitment in solar, Nate, is getting a copy of, guys, the electric bill, right? No electric bill, I say no ticket, no shirt, no bill, no solar. So getting a copy of the electric bill, right? So those are the three. Then I look at DNQs, right? Did not qualify. I look at no-shows, and I look at a few others. Those are the first 5 or 6 that I would start with. And then what I want to do is I want to dig a little bit deeper. So let's say we lay this out in a scorecard. So Monday morning, VPs of sales or heads of sales, when you're sitting with your sales team, you have your scorecard up there, right? You're going to ask your door knocking team. So it looks like you knocked about 100 doors, or let's say you knocked 500 doors, and you only really created 3 or 4 appointments. Well, help me understand why. So you dig deeper. Well, they told me they slammed the door in my face. I didn't get a copy of the bill. Whatever the case may be. Here's the switch in the scorecard and the accountability to get your team thinking differently. Don't think about the number of doors. Think about the appointments. We built a call center for a client in Florida. And all they heard was, I have to make 100 calls a day, 100 calls a day, 100 calls a day. I'm like, no, you're thinking about it differently. I need to book 4 appointments a day, 4 appointments a day, 4 appointments a day. So the scorecard is used as a lever, right? A lever or a knob to get your team to think differently. So when you look at the numbers, you look at the outcomes, right? I'm a big outcome person. So, okay, great. You knocked 100 doors, because if you knock 60 doors and got 4 appointments, very different from knocking 120 doors and getting 4 appointments. Well, that person's much more effective. Again, I have another client I'm working with in Florida. She talks about, I put in 150% of my effort every single day. I go, okay, what's the number? She goes, I don't know. I said, go here and point to your head. This is the number. I want you to put the number right here. She goes, I'm going to get 4 appointments a day. I said, how many calls is it going to take? She goes, I don't know. I said, that's the answer I want to hear. I want you to focus on the outcome, because that's really what it comes down to. So those are the KPIs I would look for door knockers. For sales organizations, it's how many sales did you have for the week or for the month? I'd look at, and this is a systemic problem now, is cancellations, right? So you have a client that agreed, signed the deal, and all of a sudden they look at your Google reviews or your BBB, and you have a crappy rating, and then they cancel. Well, let's find out why they canceled. Did they really cancel because of the reviews, or it's because you didn't follow the process of asking better questions? And that becomes what? That becomes a training opportunity for that sales organization. Number of sales, number of cancellations. I look at gross margin, right? If I hear negative EBITDA one more time, my head's going to spin off my shoulders, right? A lot of sales organizations, I'm talking EPCs, are running with negative EBITDA. It's because they're trying to sell in volume and make up for it later on. I would say, look at your gross margin. So if the average margin on a 10 kilowatt deal is about $5,000, how many deals you have to sell per month to sustain your business, to have a positive EBITDA, to, i.e., put more money in marketing and more money in sales, So I know I kind of went down the rabbit hole a little bit, but those are the things I would look for in sales. If you guys want to dig a little deeper, I can have a one-on-one call with you. I like to customize some of those metrics to you. If I have a company that's doing between 10 and 20 deals a month, the metrics are the same, but I expand them more for a company that's doing 100 to 200 a month.
So I'm going to pick out something you probably wouldn't think I would pick out of all that.
No, go ahead.
You had mentioned no-shows.
Mm.
In your experience, like what's a tip to get through that hurdle of people actually coming to the appointment? Is there something that the rep can do on the front end that's more effective to make sure that customer's stickier? Was it they just were, just agreeing so that they would leave? In your experience, like how do you increase your sit rate?
Great question. And a lot of reps won't do this. So, and that's probably why they have high no-shows. And sometimes it is market specific. Like Texas is very different from New York, which is different from Florida, which is radically different from Arizona and California. More mature markets react differently. But I think if you look at markets across the entire country, how to increase sit rates, this is what I would do. We'd book the appointment, and then you have your follow-up saying, I'm so excited, can't wait to change your life, to permanently and significantly reduce your energy costs forever. Whatever tagline you want to use. I like using that type of verbiage. We're honored and grateful for the opportunity to permanently lock in your electricity rate forever. So you get the right mindset of thinking, okay, this company's going to help me. Then what I would do 48 hours before is I would call them on the phone and say, hey, Nate, it's Anthony with AJC Group. Can't wait to see you on Saturday. Looking forward to seeing you then. Don't ask questions, be in the affirmative. Then I would call the morning of, and if I don't get them on the phone, I send them a text message. I would say, hey, Nate, it's Anthony. I'll see you in a couple of hours. If you can't make it, text me back. So I've given them the out. Now, I know a lot of reps don't agree with that because, well, why would you do that? Why would you introduce something negative? Because I'd rather get a quick no than an I don't know and then a no-show. I'd rather know ahead of time before I got in the car, before I started the Zoom, before I started the Google Meet. I'd rather know ahead of time before I spent all this time driving out to a client site. Big problem in Texas, somewhat of a bigger problem in Florida, not so big of a problem in New York.
So that's a perfect segue into something that we've talked about. I'm curious to get some more insight on, and you've mentioned it a few times, but I'd like to go again another layer down, and that's how do you recognize and avoid spinning your wheels on customers that are never going to close? Because you've mentioned that in context a couple times. Yeah. So I'd like to kind of get your opinion on that.
There's a book. There's a book by someone who is a mentor of mine. His name is Anthony Iannarino. He's written many, many books. He wrote a book, The Only Sales Guide You Ever Need. And one thing I will steal from him, and Anthony, I'm recognizing you on this podcast, is he created a list called micro commitments, right? Now, this applies very, very much to the residential market and even more so in the commercial market. When you create micro commitments, you're asking those 5 W questions, right? The who, what, where, when, why, and sometimes the how. Avoid the why because it could make people defensive. But what I would say is to avoid those no-shows, to avoid those cancellations, you always want to get a micro commitment. So I usually ask 2 or 3 questions, and I'll use my coaching, my pro coaching program. Nate, we've gone over 3 or 4 items that you're having challenges with. You want to increase confidence and accountability with your sales team. We don't have really good SOPs in place, and I overall got to get my sales team on track so I can go build out my organization and get into the next market. Have I identified the 3 areas that you're challenged with? And your answer should be yes. Now, if you're in the home, I would say, hey, Nate, it looks like you're really having an uncomfortable situation with your electric bill, or you notice your electric bill is going up. You and I both know it's going up. That's one of the challenges. The other thing is you want to be able, you live in Texas, right? We know that the infrastructure in Texas is a huge challenge. Or if you're in Florida, we know that hurricanes and weather is a big challenge. And we know that having a battery backup is going to protect your home further by having that battery in your home. Is that still on point for you? And then I'd say, this is something that you really want to do this year, right, Nate? Now you can use a Chris Voss approach and you can use mirroring and whatever tactics. Use what works for you, but the intention has to be direct by saying, Have I been able to resolve these 3 issues? Yes, Anthony, absolute. Is there anything else we need to talk about before we get into the proposal? No. So what have I done? I've created what they call a micro commitment. I've had a micro commitment of time. I've had a micro commitment of budget moving forward, right? And I had a micro commitment of all the things that we need to cover. So those are the 3. Once you get into the contract, it could be, well, I have 3 other quotes I'm looking at. Great. So that means you haven't found the right company so far. Why don't we put the contract to the side? Nate, why don't you tell me what's the one thing that's missing from all 3 of these that we want to dig into? I get right to the heart of it. So overcoming the objection of, I need to see another quote, right? And I can carry this on to the different types of buyers, but in general, you have to get those micro commitments. If you guys want to copy the micro commitments, I'll send them to you. They're actually in the book. It's The Only Sales Guide You Ever Need by Anthony Iannarino. It's fantastic. So commitment of time, commitment to make a decision, commitment to a budget, commitment to overcoming challenges. I will give you that list. It's a great list. It will get your mindset right. The one thing we haven't talked about, Nate, which is really a big takeaway for everyone here, is you got to get your mindset right, guys. You got to get your head right. All these things we're talking about, and Nate, I'm a big fan of yours. I've been following you. You do great stuff. You got the right mindset, right? I always try every single day to have the right mindset. If you don't have the right mindset, all these things that we're talking about will have no effect and will do what? It won't move the needle. It'll move the needle in the opposite direction.
Yeah, I was actually going to end there, but we'll zoom back out for a minute. So given the current, whatever you want to, environment, macroeconomic trends, etc., so you deal with a lot of different reps, a lot of different geographies, a lot of different companies. And I'm just curious if there's a common denominator, a theme across all those, where if you could boil it down to 2 things, like when I do one-on-ones with people, I always like to say, like, here's what you should start doing and here's what you need to stop doing. Just 2 simple things. Have you seen a common, like, can you give a rep right now, just generally, and maybe it doesn't apply to everyone, but on a general perspective, what are one thing that reps should start doing today and one thing they should stop doing?
One thing they should stop doing is trying to do everything. I see all these posts on these Facebook, and it says, oh, I'm doing this and this and this, and I'm going to start doing home energy efficiency. I'm going to start doing HVAC. I'm like, pick your lane, right? You got to go all in. Stop trying to be everything. If you're a sales org, be a really good sales org. If you're an EPC, be a really good EPC, right? I would say stay in your lane. Now I don't want that to be misconstrued as, well, I'm a one-trick pony. No, you're just really good at what you do, right? I mean, think about all the people that you know that are really good CEOs of companies, right? They're just really good at being CEOs. So I would say, stop trying to do everything. The other thing I would start doing is stop beating yourself up. Stop trying to impress everybody, and stop trying to compare yourself to what everyone else is doing. Everyone's got their own story. Everyone's got their own trauma, their own challenges, their own victories, right? And Nate, a lot of the people you and I both know, right? We're all going through our stuff. Everyone's got stuff. So do more sitting down and looking at where you want to go. I want to do 50 deals a month. Good. Do some reverse engineering and figure out what it's going to take. Filter it through the KPI scorecard, filter it through the Eisenhower matrix, do an automate, delegate, eliminate on it, leverage technology, and just start doing it. So the takeaway is, stop trying to do everything and be everything to everybody, and start doing the things that you really, so if I can end it, do things that you're really good at and that you love doing, because that's what you'll eventually do and where you'll have success and fulfillment in your life.
Yeah, I totally agree, because there's usually 2 thoughts, even among experts, which still surprises me. And maybe this is somewhat controversial in that arena of, personal development, but I am one that, and I tell my kids, like, double down on your strengths, right? That's where you're going to make the most gains. And the people that focus just on their weaknesses, then they're not exercising that part, that their God-given gift, whatever you want to call it, that makes them better, that makes them unique. So I'm hearing a little bit of that. Is that your mindset too? Like, focus on what I heard you say, focus on what you're good at. So focus on your strengths, right?
Focus on your strengths. Stop and give your weaknesses to somebody else. Right.
Exactly.
I
Delegate.
saw a question in the chat box about when was the last time Anthony knocked the door. Well, it was about 2 months ago. I went out with a team in Texas. So yeah, do I knock doors regularly? I don't do that anymore, but I have teams that do that. But I know what's going on. So I don't disagree with your question. I actually like it, but let me give it to it in context. Do I need to be knocking a door? Yeah, if I like to go see what's going on in the field, here's what I do: record every door. Record every door, whether it be on your phone, your iPad, record at the door, because that's where you're going to uncover the challenges, where you're going to do well in what market, right? Because door knocking in Texas is radically different from door knocking in Arizona, which is radically different from door knocking in New York, right? Door knocking is it's hard. It's the hardest thing to do. I mean, I know a friend of ours is a CEO of a company in Southern Texas. He came from the door knocking business. I respect him for that. I don't think he does door knocking anymore. He runs the company, but at the end of the day, so I appreciate the question. When I door knocked about a month and a half ago with a team, I went out with a team. We did a blitz, and I give credit to you door knockers. I think it's amazing what you do. Just have the right mindset. Know that if I know I got to get 2 appointments today, right? So I'll leave this for the door knockers. If you know you have to get 2 appointments today, and I told you have to get 98 no's to get the 2 appointments, don't stop at door number 86. Just keep going. Promise yourself. Know that you already have it. Future project yourself. I already have the appointments. And what is that? That's the mindset. You get the mindset right, everything else follows behind it.
Yeah, you said something else in previous to that resonated too, because I often tell people do less well, right? Just do less things and do them well instead of trying to do everything okay. Just do less well. So I did see, I guess, when you think about, especially for people who aren't as far along in their career, like how do you help people identify what their strengths are? I know there's Strengths Finder out there, which is a book you can go get. And it's interesting. But that's one thing I think some people, maybe it's lack of confidence, they just don't know how to identify what their strengths are. Do you have any proven methods where you could say, hey, look, you're really good at this. Like that's where you should focus on, or this is the type of clothes you should use, whatever it might apply to. Do you have anything that you recommend there?
Sure. So the easiest way to identify your strengths, right? Look at 3 different areas. What is it that you do that it doesn't take you a lot of effort and you just do it and you feel good afterwards? And that's a general question, but that is an identification of a strength. Find someone who is not a family member, right? Someone who knows you as a friend. And I want you to ask the question, what do you think that I'm good at? And someone who's known you. Because I had to go through that challenge myself. I thought I was really bad in certain things, and I was actually pretty good. And other areas I thought I was pretty good, I wasn't very good at, right? Like I'm not good at being a quiet person. I'm not. I'm good at being a very loud person. So I would say, first of all, you want to ask someone, a very trusted friend, not a family member, because they're going to tell you what you want to hear. A trusted friend, somebody that you may be your direct supervisor or somebody, a colleague in the industry. Now there's tens of thousands of people hanging out in these Facebook groups, right? Don't ask them. They're not your friends, right? Ask someone you actually had a cup of coffee with, you had a dinner with, you had a meal with, and say, what do you think my strengths are? What do you think I'm good at? And I'm telling you, 98% of the time, that's where you're going to start. The second thing is ask yourself, what do I really like to do? So I'll give you mine. I, for many, many years, wanted to be on stage. I wanted to be the next Tony Robbins. I wanted to be the next Tony Robbins because I loved his energy. Right? I didn't have a dad growing up. So he became sort of like my virtual father figure. I was blessed to be able to actually land an interview with him. And when I met him in person, we had our big cry and he told me all these things. I've had like 15 minutes with him in between the UPW show. And, I won't tell you the whole story, but one of the things that came out of it was I said, Tony, I'm trying to do this. And he pulled out 3 things and he goes, this is working for you. Keep doing that. And that just stuck right here. That happened in 2016, just stuck right here. And I knew, and he didn't know me, but I knew he made me believe that I was good at that. So if you can find a mentor, find someone who you like, you trust, you believe, they'll give you the hard truth. And then ask yourself simply, even at the end of this call, I want you to just like put your hands on the desk and go, okay, if money and time were not an issue, what would I do? And you will have an instant epiphany, just like that. Like, I like doing this. Mine is, if I can be on stage 7 days a week, talking to folks like yourself and traveling the world, I would do it every day, twice on Sunday for free. But I have to make money. That's what I said. I have to make money. And I found a way of doing it through my leadership coaching and development, personal development program.
Well, that's awesome. Yeah. We share a lot of the same just mindset, and we'll probably circle back to that. That's kind of underpinning theme here. But something else I want to pick out of that answer, you had mentioned social media. So for those that are on LinkedIn, you probably have come across either Anthony or I. We're both pretty active on there, and I've personally gotten a ton of business from it in a variety of ways. I've met a lot of incredible people through it. And at the level of closing solar deals, how can reps use social media? What have you seen that's been effective? I know you mentioned Facebook a little bit ago, but what's effective to increase sales?
A couple ways. And depends on what platform you're on. What not to do on Facebook, don't complain. Nobody likes complainers, right? Don't be a whiner, be a winner. On LinkedIn, think of it this way. This is, and what I've learned in the 15, 16 years I've been on LinkedIn is the people on LinkedIn have the checkbook. Let's call it what it is, guys. They have the ability to write the check. So if you're in the B2B side, that's where the money is. I would say easy ways to leverage social media is be yourself, right? But be yourself in an effort to share value. So what I would say is, in one of my Instagram stories or one of my LinkedIn stories, I say, I'm not the quietest guy in the room, and I'm very loud. And let me tell you why me being loud helped me do this. Don't just share your story like it's therapy. Share it like, hey, I was this way and I learned this. Like for me, I learned very quickly how to be a good father, even though I didn't have a father figure in my life. When I had my children, I learned very quickly how to be a father. So I knew how to take care and how to support and encourage. And what I did was I learned from being a father, okay, if I can help encourage and inspire and motivate them, I can do that with other people. First, I did it to myself because, right, you can't be good for anybody if you're not good for yourself. And then I did it with my clients. I did it with VPs of sales. I did it with CEOs. I've done it with startups. I've done it with $400 million companies and $4 million companies. So leverage social media by being a painkiller, right? I'll use a catchphrase, a painkiller. I want you to be the one that's actually killing the pain. And the way to get the attention on social media, if you guys want to hack, if you really want to talk about it, is talk about the pain that your industry is facing, right? The biggest pain residential solar is facing right now is lack of accountability, lack of confidence, and lack of communication. If you can solve those three problems, you're going to get the attention and people are going to want to ask you questions. And one posting could completely change your entire life and your entire business.
So kind of sticking on similar topic here, one that I've often thought about is, and you talked about reviews in the very beginning and then leveraging just now social media. But I think a lot of people, at least in my opinion, the best way to increase sales is to increase your referral rates. And because of just variety of factors, we often see pretty low referral rates. It's a general statement. All right. I'm sure people are going to light up the chat now. Like, oh, mine's, 50%, whatever it is. No matter what, there's room for improvement. I think we can all agree with that. So what do you see as effective in increasing referral rates? Does it start at the door knock? Does it start at the kitchen table? What's a good way or a tip that you could provide to reps out there to get that referral?
And Nate, transparency, I've tried everything. What I found that really works well is, I'll give it to you. And Nate, you're my homeowner. So Nate, we signed the agreement. Nate, I'm excited to work with you. I can't wait to change your life and give you an opportunity to lock in your electricity rate forever. And Nate, I know so well in my heart that I'm going to give you a complete 5-star customer experience. I'd like to ask you now, if I give you a 5-star experience, can you introduce to me to somebody who would want the same exact experience as I gave you? And what did I just do? I made it about the referral, but I made it more about Nate. Like, I have to give them that 5-star experience. Here's another thing, guys, write this down. The big challenge in referrals is you have a crappy customer service experience. And I hear this. It's sales problem and an operations problem. Doesn't matter. You're the face to the customer. You need to be the one to ask those questions. So to get to leverage referrals, that's your first and best way to get your next client. Because if you have someone who had a great experience, they're going to introduce you to somebody who wants the same experience. And I've had that. One of my early coaching clients about 10 and a half, 11 years ago, they referred me to 4 people. And I didn't even know who they were. I'm like, who'd you come from? Well, Chris referred me. Oh, you mean Chris from, 2012? So I think you need to ask for that referral up front. Now, some of you may have a different approach. I firmly believe what really works is you get them right when they're excited and they're ready to go. This is it. I know you're going to have a 5-star experience with me, Nate. I can't wait. And I want you to be thinking about someone else who wants to have that same experience like you, because good people like to refer good things to other good people.
I agree with that. I don't think anyone can argue that. So I think I want to leave some time for questions. I think
Sure.
that's a pretty good ending point. Unless did I miss anything that you want to talk about?
No, I'm excited for the Q&A, Nick. That's where the fun starts.
Yeah, I have a few other topics as well. If there's
Yeah.
not a lot of questions, one in particular is top of mind, but
Sure.
just in case, I'd like to get, we wanted to focus more on the rep for this one.
Yeah, sure.
Just integration and just give some tips, and I appreciate all the free advice that you've given through your years of experience. So I guess, Rebecca, if you're still there, do you want to read off a few questions and
Sure.
whatever's interesting?
Yeah, absolutely. We have one that's a little bit about kind of state specific. So in California, we're dealing with a lot of companies going out of business. People feel very insecure with going solar. How do you combat that? And also, installs are taking 60 to 90 days.
Right. So what I can tell you about California is NEM 3.0 has really put a damper in the sales activity and the volume growth of in those markets. However, I'll be the contrarian and tell you, we all knew this was coming. I mean, California is basically Hawaii 1.0. Hawaii has been a very interesting market for many years. I've been out there several times working with the political landscape, working with installers, and they don't have net metering. They don't. Everything is solar plus storage. So what I want you to think about is you have to adapt your pitch, adapt your model, because people are still going to go solar. Write this down. It's not a question of if, it's a question of when. And if you listen to all the noise that's going on, this one's going out of business, this one's going out of business, you're going to follow that train. I want you to put a stake in the ground and say, I'm going to make sure that I adapt to the new model, because solar is not going to stop in California and it's not going to drop 100%. There's going to be some fallout. So what I would say in California is you have to be able to talk about what's your unique ability. What do you offer that 500 other solar companies can offer? Well, here's one. I'll give you a tip. You're dealing with me. I'm personally going to make sure that your system gets installed on time and make promises, because people don't buy from companies. They buy from people, right? Jeffrey Gitomer, the old school sales guy, says people buy from people they know, they like, and they trust. You have to build a know, like, and trust approach, asking questions and making promises. So California is definitely a different market. Southern is different from Northern. If you want to have more of a one-on-one conversation, I can share what I know, and actually have 2 or 3 other clients that are in California. I don't do a lot in California, but I do have 3 clients that I've worked with in the past. I can share my experiences with them.
Awesome.
Thank you. All right. We have Anthony. What is the max amount of commissions you've collected in 1 year?
I'm a lot. A lot. I can say it's in the 6 figures. I can tell you that much. It's a humbling question. It's a big question to answer, because I don't want to sound like I'm pounding my chest or underplaying. I've been very fortunate to to make very good money in the solar industry, both on the commercial and on the residential side. I'll give you an insight. I sold a 150 megawatt project in Florida in 2016.
Wow.
So that maybe give you some gravity. On the residential side, yeah, I think 1 year I did six figures, and I'm talking, this is before six figures were big. Six figures was big then. Like nobody made six figures back then. So I'm talking, I don't know, could be 10 years ago. So I made six figures.
Great.
But you can do it too.
That's right.
Not just, you can do it too. Whoever asked the question, you can do it too.
All right. Do you think sales is equal in all industries? What are the differences, similarities?
The only difference is selling product and selling service, right? Selling services, you're selling you and the value of your ability to be able to talk about how I do three things, right? And if you're talking business, it's I need to increase revenue, decrease cost, and take out risk, right? If you're talking on the residential side, I need to make the homeowner feel like they are the king or the queen of the castle. It has to have an A triple plus customer experience. That I'm going to do exactly what I say I'm going to do, and I'm going to do it on time and in budget, right? In product, you have to leverage the capability of what the product does. So when you're selling product, it's the same thing. It's just asking different questions. Sales on service and on product are pretty much the same. They have their nuances, but it all comes down to the quality of the questions that you ask. You are judged not by the answers you give, but by the quality of the questions that you ask.
Great. Interesting. Do you have any advice about when is the correct time to leave a company?
Most people leave a company because of bad leadership. And I don't mean bad as in they're bad people. It's just leadership. You know, we have an old Italian saying that the fish stinks at the head. It's the same, but that most companies leave a company because of leadership. And I'm telling you now, it's leadership's fault about why you're leaving. They didn't recognize it. But that would be the main thing. I mean, there could be other things that you weren't getting paid on time. And I know that's a systemic problem in this industry. Sales organizations are not getting paid on time. And I blame them and I blame you for not doing enough vetting. And I know that's the hard thing to hear, but I'm going to be truthful with you. I don't sugarcoat anything. But leaving a company has to be because you didn't have you weren't, your position wasn't defined correctly. You didn't have accountability. You didn't have the support. You didn't have a clear path for success. And that all falls on leadership.
Great. Great answer. So we have a couple that are sort of similar in terms of like how can the salesperson control the customer experience when they're not necessarily the company installing, right? So how can they ensure a 5-star experience when that piece may be out of their control?
That's a great question. And I'm sure that comes from a sales org who's asking that question. Well, you know, one of the big things that is going on, one of the trends now are a lot of sales orgs are going out of business. They're closing, temporarily closed. They're closing their doors. Sales orgs are trying to find W-2 positions, and they realize they want to work for the man. They want to go do on their own. So I would say do your due diligence and start vetting these EPCs. And I could give you a listing of maybe 10 questions, but I'll give you a couple here. And if you want to learn more, just reach out to me, DM me, or email me, and I'll walk you through them. You want to make sure that they're easy to work with. And I know using Interflow just makes it so much easier, right? So I'll plug Interflow because it does work and it works very, very well. Is you got to be able to work with them, that the obstacles are very low. The hurdle rates are very, very low. And that you can actually look at their reviews and see where they've done well. I would take a look at their reviews. And don't get me wrong, a lot of companies have bad reviews because of problems with operations, lack of SOPs, not delivering on their promises, and so on and so forth. So I would say that you ensure you can control what you can control. So here's a way to look at it. Control what you can control. You can control your interactions with the customer. You can control the process to a certain extent, and you can control their experience because you're the point person. Make sure they come to you. You need to be the subject matter expert, and you need to be the person that's going to guide them. Remember, you want to make the homeowner the hero. You're not the hero. You're the guide. You want them to feel like a hero once that system gets installed. But I would say, ask the EPC, how long have you been in business? What's your financial situation look like? And can I speak to 2 or 3 other sales orgs that you're working with? Because I know a lot of companies work with multiple sales orgs. And those are the 3 questions I would ask. If you want to know more, reach out to me. I'm happy to help you out.
Fantastic. Thank you. All right, we have a few
Welcome.
more coming in.
Yeah.
How would you approach areas with lower utility rates, 13 to 17 cents per kilowatt?
17 not so low, by the way.
I
13
was thinking the same thing. I was like,
13
man,
so low.
okay. Talk about inflation, 17% utility rate. I mean, anyway.
No, I just, because I would, I'm not going to presume I would say Oklahoma is a really hot state for solar, but because of low electricity rates, it doesn't really pencil. So, there's really 3 reasons why a homeowner goes solar, right? They're sick of their electricity bill, right? They don't want to pay it, right? And here's the crazy thing. Most homeowners think that utilities are run by the government. Think of it. They think they're part of the government, and they're not. They're a for-profit organization. But most homeowners say, oh, the utility, they're run by the government, and they're not. So homeowners really, there's 3 reasons why homeowners go solar. And whether you're doing in Oklahoma and I know some areas of Florida, I know, Nate, you probably share with me like rates in Florida. I know I can share my rates in Florida, but certain areas of Florida, not as high as New York. I mean, we're here at 25 to 35 cents a kilowatt hour up here in New York. So one is they're tired of paying a high electric bill, right? I'm sure all of you heard that looking at the September bill based on August bill, right? September document looking at August bill is they're tired of paying the increased electricity rates. 2 is that the average homeowner is under the age of 45. And that generation is a question of when, not a question of if. If you were selling 10 years ago, they think you're crazy. I'm not a green person. I'm not a tree hugger. I'm not putting those ugly things on my roof, right? They want to do something sustainable. And here's a trick. If they have an EV in their driveway, they are going solar. You just have to get them. You have to compel them to do that. Controlling electricity costs, doing something sustainable, right, for their home. And the other one is add value to your home. We all know adding solar to your home, according to the Pearl calculator, will probably increase your value between 4 and 4.5%. So how do I go about going after low electricity rates? Is you have to do some market research and find out where the total number of installs are. I'm not asking you to reinvent the wheel. So here's what I would do. I would go on Solar Power World, or I would look at local solar companies that are in the area. And I would personally do a Google Earth view and just start scanning and see where there's solar installed on rooftops, right? You don't want to be the first to market, right? You don't want to be what do we call it, Nate, an innovator, right? You want to be that early adopter. Find out where there's solar installed. And if you live in that state, knock on the door. Hey, my name's Anthony with the AJC Group. I just noticed you have solar on your roof. And I know that typically electricity rates are low. Can you maybe tell me why you went solar? And use that as leverage to start doing your outreach. I know there's a little bit of a longer answer, but I hope that helps.
That's great advice. Thank you. We have a couple more, and I think we have a time for a couple more. So let's go with what's the best way to approach payment shoppers with these high interest rates right now?
Okay, so we kind of identify different buyers. There's the lamb, right? Just nice people. They want to be nice to you. There's the owl who wants to know all the technical questions, right? You have the tiger, which is, I'm looking for the best price and I know what I want to do. And the bull is, just give me the contract and ready to go, right? So let's say it's a tiger buyer, right? Tiger buyer is, I just need to have the best payment. Great. What did you have in mind? I would go right to the question and I would say, okay, when you say payment, help me understand what that means. You want to get people to start thinking about what they say, because sometimes when they say it, they usually say it from a defensive position, right? So I took a look at doing an HVAC system in my house, and me being the sales-minded person, I wanted to make sure I was asking all the right questions. And one of the guys came in, and I said, "Listen, I'm not really sure what these look like according to budget, but I am a little budget conscious, but I want to hear what you have to say." And this is what he said to me. He goes, "Anthony, budget becomes irrelevant if I'm solving all of your problems." I'm like, okay. That made me listen a few more seconds. Then when he walked me through the different options, I get to decide. So here's a trick for you. Here's something very tactical. You're really curious about payment. So help me understand what that means. He says, well, I don't want to pay more than $200 a month. Okay, great. Well, what are you paying now? Say, well, I'm paying about $250 a month. Great. let's say you don't do this. And by the way, you don't have to do this. And here's what I do. You don't have to buy from me, but I'm telling you, solar's going to actually lock in your electricity rate for the next 25 years. And then that payment you're thinking about now is going to is minimal compared to what you're going to be paying in 5 to 10 years. You have to get into their head and future project where things are going to be. Because people think about the payment now, right? They don't think about what the payment's going to be in 5 years. So show them historically. Electricity rates have gone up around 4 to 5% in the past 50 years. Use that number. Electricity rates have gone up between 3 and 5% in the last 50 years. In the last 24 months, they've gone up as much as 50% in the market. So that's why we're here, Mr. Customer. We're here to lock in the payment for you. So instead of thinking about your payment, why don't we lock in the payment and keep it low? So in 2025, 26, 27, 20, 30, 35, you're still paying 200 and everyone else is paying 900. You got to walk them through that.
Excellent. Do we have time for one more?
Do it.
What do you think? All right. Okay.
Yeah.
Going back to the Eisenhower matrix, how often would you recommend to go through this exercise? Daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly, annually, or a combination of all the above?
It depends. It depends on your position, right? If you're a rep, you could probably do it once a week, right? If you're a senior level executive, I would say do it once a month because you're not getting such a volume. You have to really, what I would say is run it. When you run it through the first time, it's going to be like pouring your life into a funnel. It's going to go like this and you're going to be able to, really see things and you'll be able to pull things out. So what I would say is write down the 10, 15, 20, 60 things that you do normally every day, every week, every month. And then I'd run an Eisenhower matrix for the day, for the week, and for the month. Don't do it for the year. It's too much because you can't project out that far, right? God gave us eyes in the front of our head, not in the back. We can't see anything back here. You only can see what's in front of you. And I would probably only do it for a week. So if you're a rep right now, if you're a rep and okay, I got to make calls. I got to do a follow-up. I got to get my report done. I got to go at Enterflow and get the design. I got to do a revision. I got to door knock. I got to return an email. Just start writing those things down and then run those things through the matrix. You'll be very, very surprised on where you're spending a lot of your time and they're not on the things you should be spending time on.
That's great. Yeah, it's a great stopping point. So Tony, again, I really appreciate you coming on. I think there's a lot of wisdom in there. For people that want to find you, right? If they, and we'll send out an email, I'm sure it has all your contact, but somebody wants to find you, they want a one-on-one coaching session or they're a CEO and they want you to come help them increase their sales and their win numbers. How do they find you?
I'm pretty easy to find. I'm on LinkedIn at Anthony J. Conklin. You can find me there. My website is anthonyjconklin.com. Hunter Daniels is my head of operations. He runs my schedule. We can put a calendar link in there and we can find some time to chat. But what I would say is when we have a conversation, really think about like what problem you really want to solve. I mean, we can have a great conversation. I love chatting. I love talking, but I really like to dig into what problem you're trying to solve. And I can give you I could do some diagnosis against some prescriptive measures if it makes sense. I'm also on Instagram, Anthony J. Conklin, Facebook. So you can really find me. I'm a pretty easily accessible person. You can find me everywhere.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate it. Thanks for the time, everybody. Thanks for listening.
Yeah.
Thanks,
thank
Nate.
you so much. Thank you both. This was fantastic. Thanks for everyone who joined, for making the time to join, and great conversation and insights. We will send out an email with the recording as well as additional info, like some of the stuff that was referenced today, some of the content, just so that you guys have all the tools that you need to be successful. So thank you both so much again. This was great, and hope to see you next time.
Thanks, guys. Thanks very much. Thank you.
Bye.
We good?
I think so. Yeah, I guess it's over. I didn't hear the
Thanks for the time.
Yeah, man. I'll be in touch.
All right. Talk to you soon. Take care.